Welcome back. This is Cecily with RelyCheck. We're continuing our Convergent Mixed Methods analysis in RelyCheck MM Studio. In part 1, we set up our Convergent study and got the data clean and mapped. Now the real analysis begins. In this part, we build both strands. First, the quantitative side, where we test whether the confidence gap between the two clinics is real and look at who actually improved. Then the qualitative side, where we read what patients wrote and code it into themes. Two kinds of evidence, each done with care, so we can bring them together later. Let's start with the numbers. In quantitative descriptives, MM Studio gives you 4 views, frequencies, means, and distributions, cross-tabulations, and group summaries. I'm going to break everything out by clinic. First, the frequencies table shows that 25 patients are in the Northside cohort and 25 are in Lakeview. Then means and distributions gives you 2 tables. Table 1 is the overall summary, and table 2 is the means by group. That second table is the one I care about right now, self-efficacy by clinic. And right away the story starts to show. On self-efficacy, that confidence in managing scale, Northside sits at about 5.5 out of 7. Lakeview sits at about 4.7. Northside patients also attended more sessions on average, so the numbers lean toward Northside on confidence and engagement. Hold that thought though, because a gap in a table is not yet a finding. It could still be luck. That's the next screen. Now we move to quantitative inferential, and MM Studio gives you 4 sets here: parametric comparisons, non-parametric comparisons, categorical, and regression. It's time to settle whether these gaps are real. Start with the confidence gap. I run an independent samples t-test. I set the outcome, my dependent variable, to self-efficacy, and the grouping variable, my independent variable, to clinic. I set the test type to auto, and I leave the confidence interval at 95%. Before we even look at a result, I want you to notice the diagnostics review. MM Studio asks you to check its flagged assumptions before you trust the mean difference. It reminds you that Welch handles unequal variances, but Welch does not fix a small, skewed, paired, or clustered design. Here, it raises one review flag on independence with a plain warning. Use a paired t-test or a Wilcoxon signed rank if the same people show up in both groups, and use multi-level methods if your sample is clustered. And you get 3 choices for that flag. Add it to your researcher's notes, add it to your report notes, or dismiss it. If you add it to your researcher's notes, here's where it lands. Open the Coach tab, click the 3rd tab in, and your notes are right there. It's an editable notepad so you can write, add, and save as you go. In our study, the 2 clinics are different patients, so the groups are independent. And this is a flag to acknowledge, not a problem to fix. Now the t-test itself, I ran it on auto, and auto defaulted to Welch. The result comes back with a T of 3.56 and a P well under 0.001. So the confidence difference between the clinics is not noise, it's real. And look at the effect size, a Cohen's d of 1.01. In plain language, that's a large gap, not a hair-splitting one. Next, I run a chi-square with A1C improvement as the row variable and clinic as the column variable. And remember back at the data map, when we set these as categorical? This is where that pays off. If we'd left them as plain numbers, the analysis would have turned them away because it wouldn't have read them as categories. The first tab is the contingency table, the raw material the chi-square will test. Read the counts first. At Northside, 23 patients improved and 2 did not. At Lakeview, 16 improved and 9 did not. 50 patients, 25 per clinic. The rate within each clinic comes straight from those counts. Northside, 23 of 25 improved, that's 92%. Lakeview, 16 of 25, that's 64%. That's your headline gap. Now, one thing about the percentages on screen. The note at the bottom says Percentages are within each row. So those are row percentages, not the within clinic rate. They split each outcome across the two clinics. Of the 39 people who improved, 59% were Northside and 41% Lakeview. Of the 11 who did not improve, only about 18% were Northside and a striking 82% were Lakeview. So non-improvement clusters hard at Lakeview, 9 of those 11 patients. That concentration is exactly what makes clinic and outcome look related, and it's what drives the test on the next tab. Over on test result, the chi-square comes back at 5.71, with 1 degree of freedom across all 50 patients and a PI of 0.017. The chi-square is how far your real counts sit from what you'd expect if clinic and improvement had nothing to do with each other. The 1 degree of freedom is just what a 2x2 table gives you. And that P means if the two clinics truly improved at the same rate, you'd see a gap this big only about 1 or 2 times in 100 by chance. That's under the 0.05 line, so it's significant. The last tab, reporting language, is quietly one of my favorites because it turns this one result into correct, ready-to-use wording for whoever needs it. And it builds in the guardrails people forget. It hands you a plain language summary for a clinic director who doesn't read stats, and a researcher summary in proper journal form, chi-square with its degrees of freedom, its N, and the exact values laid out the way a method section wants. You copy the right one instead of hand typing it and fumbling the format. It also shows Kramer's OV, about 0.34, right next to the p-value. That's the effect size, the strength of the link, and pairing it with significance keeps you from the classic mistake of reporting a PI all by itself. 0.34 is a moderate association, not a trivial one. Then it gives you a mixed methods next step, telling you to stage this significant result for qualitative follow-up. That's the bridge in action. A significant number here isn't the end, it's a signal to go ask the words why. And it closes with a caution. Chi-square leans on cell counts, so check that no expected cell falls below 5, and our table has a small one, only 2 non-improvers at Northside, so that's worth a look at cell diagnostics. It also reminds you that a significant result shows a relationship, not a cause. Clinic and outcome are related. The clinic did not necessarily cause it. That restraint is the whole rely check posture. Prove the association, then let the design and the patient's own words speak to the why. So here's where the numbers leave us. 92% of Northside patients improved versus 64% at Lakeview, and the chi-square at 5.71 with a p of 0.017 says that difference is real. On paper, it looks damning for Lakeview. Same program, worse outcomes. If we stop right here at the numbers, we might walk away blaming those patients. We are not going to stop at the numbers. That's the whole point of what comes next. Now we cross over to the words, and quantitative folks, stay with me. This is the part that felt unfamiliar to me too the first time. We read what patients wrote and we sort it into themes. One real tip from doing this myself. When you land here, Studio offers to create starter themes for you automatically. For a study where you already know your constructs, I'd skip that. The auto starter can hand you messy literal codes. Instead, I add my own 6 themes, the ones that come from actually reading the responses: care team, the coach and nurse relationship, confidence and control, support, meaning family and peers, access, the cost and insurance and food barriers, transportation, and overwhelm, the plan feeling like too much early on. Then I code all 50 responses into those themes. And one thing worth knowing, a single response can carry more than one code because people rarely say just one thing. When I'm done, here's the shape of it. Access is the biggest theme at 16 responses. Care team 12, confidence 9, support 6, overwhelm 5, transportation 3. Already a hint. Access, the barrier theme, is the loudest voice in the room. So now we have both strands. On the numbers, a real and large confidence gap favoring Northside and a significant difference in who improved. On the words, 6 clear themes with the access barriers concentrated at Lakeview. Each strand tells part of the story. Neither one tells all of it. In part 3, we do the thing mixed methods is actually for. We merge them. We look for where they agree and where they pull apart. And we turn all of it into one defensible report. That's where it comes together. I'll see you in part 3.